At Christmas dinner, I excused myself to get wine from the garage. That's when I heard my father's voice through the heating vent. "We'll just tell Cassandra the house needs to be in Christopher's name for tax purposes. She's too soft to say no." My mother laughed. She's always been the easy one. I stood there in the cold garage, holding a bottle of wine that cost more than they knew, listening to them plan to steal the house I bought with my own money. I didn't go back to dinner. I went in my car, opened my laptop, and made one phone call. By New Year's Day, they were all signing eviction notices. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Since we're stepping into 2026, I want to wish everyone a year of strength and clarity. I really hope you continue to support this channel as we share these stories. If you believe that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, hit that like button and subscribe. This is a story about what happens when the family scapegoat finally stops playing her role. The snow was falling in thick, perfect flakes when I pulled into my parents' driveway on Christmas Eve. Their house, the one they'd owned for 30 years, looked like a greeting card. Wreaths on every window, lights strung along the roofline, smoke curling from the chimney. It was the house where I grew up. It was also the house where I learned that love in the Brennan family was conditional, and I never quite met the conditions. I sat in my car for a moment, engine running, heat blasting. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. It was the same tremor I got every time I came home. The physical reaction to being back in a place where I was always too much and never enough. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair was pulled back in a neat bun. My sweater was expensive but understated. I looked like someone who had her life together. That was the armor I wore around my family. I grabbed the bags from my trunk. I'd brought gifts, expensive ones. A cashmere scarf for my mother. A leather briefcase for my father. A watch for Christopher that cost 2 months of what they thought I made. I did this every year. I bought their affection in small, wrapped packages, and every year they accepted the gifts with the same tight smiles that said, "This is nice, but it doesn't change anything." The front door opened before I reached it. My mother, Susan, stood in the doorway wearing a red apron that said Mrs. Claus. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Cassandra, you're late." I checked my watch. I was 7 minutes past the time she'd texted me. "Traffic was bad," I said. "Christopher and Morgan have been here for an hour," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "They brought the children." Of course they did. Christopher, my older brother, was the golden child. He'd married Morgan, who came from money. They'd produced 2 children, Mason and Ivy, who my parents treated like precious heirlooms. I was the backup child. The one they called when they needed something. The one they forgot to mention in Christmas cards. I walked into the living room. The tree was massive, at least 9 feet tall, covered in ornaments that cost more than sentiment. Christopher was sitting in my father's chair, the leather recliner that was supposed to be reserved for Dad. But Christopher sat there now like he owned it. Because in every way that mattered, he did. "Cass," he said, standing up with that broad smile he used on clients. "Finally made it." "Traffic," I repeated. Morgan was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up, gave me a once-over that lingered too long on my sweater, probably calculating its worth, and went back to her screen. The kids were playing with new iPads in the corner, already surrounded by torn wrapping paper and expensive toys. My father, Joseph, came in from the kitchen carrying a tumbler of scotch. He was 68, broad-shouldered, still handsome in that weathered way. He'd built Brennan properties from nothing, or so the story went. He'd flipped his first house at 25 and never looked back. Now he owned a small empire of rental properties across 3 counties. "Cassandra," he said, nodding at me like I was an associate, not his daughter. "Good. You're here. Pour yourself something. Dinner's in an hour." I poured myself a glass of wine from the bottle they kept in the kitchen, the cheap stuff they bought at the grocery store. I knew there was a $200 bottle of Bordeaux in the garage, the one I'd brought last year, but that was being saved. For what, I didn't know. Maybe for people who mattered. Dinner was the same performance it always was. My mother had made a standing rib roast, Yorkshire pudding, all the traditional things. We sat around the table, Christopher at one end, my father at the other. I sat in the middle, next to Mason, who spent the entire meal playing games on his phone under the table. The conversation was about business. It always was. Christopher talked about a new development deal, some strip mall he was overseeing. My father nodded, asked sharp questions, and offered advice. Morgan chimed in about the interior design choices, how she'd insisted on marble countertops in the bathrooms. I ate my food and said nothing. I'd learned years ago that my opinions weren't wanted. I'd tried once, when I was 25, fresh out of grad school with my finance degree. I'd suggested they diversify their portfolio, maybe look into commercial real estate investment trusts. My father laughed. Actually, I laughed. Stick to balancing checkbooks, Cass, he'd said. Leave the real business to people who understand it. I never offered advice again. After dinner, my mother started clearing plates. I stood to help, but she waved me off. Christopher, why don't you help your father bring up that wine from the garage? The good stuff. It's Christmas, after all. I froze. The good stuff. The Bordeaux I'd brought. Christopher stood, clapping my father on the shoulder. Come on, Dad. Let's grab it. They left. Morgan excused herself to check on the kids. My mother was in the kitchen, running water, clattering dishes. I stood there in the dining room alone, feeling the familiar weight of invisibility. Then I remembered. The garage. The heating vent. When we were kids, Christopher and I used to eavesdrop on our parents through the heating vent in the upstairs hallway. You could hear everything from the garage through that old ductwork. I hadn't thought about it in years. I walked quietly to the hallway. I knelt by the vent, the one near the top of the stairs. I heard their voices immediately. So when are you going to ask her? That was my father. Tonight, maybe? Or tomorrow morning. Christopher's voice. I don't want to make it seem too obvious. She won't say no. My father laughed, low and certain. She never does. I still think we should have just put the house in my name from the start, Christopher said. This whole setup is messy. My heart stopped. House. What house? It had to be in her name for the financing, my father said. The bank wouldn't approve the loan for you. Your debt-to-income ratio was too high after the boat. Right. The boat. Christopher sighed. Morgan's still mad about that. Doesn't matter. Once we transfer it to you, it's done. Cassandra's too soft to fight it. We'll tell her it's for tax purposes, estate planning, whatever. She'll sign the papers. I couldn't breathe. They were talking about my house. The house I'd bought 6 months ago. I'd saved for 3 years. I'd worked 60-hour weeks at the investment firm, managing portfolios for clients who trusted me with millions. I'd skipped vacations, driven a used car, and lived in a cramped apartment. And 6 months ago, I'd finally done it. I'd bought a house. A beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood. I'd paid $350,000 for it. The mortgage was in my name. The deed was in my name. Or it was supposed to be. She's always been the easy one. My mother's voice joined them. I hadn't heard her walk into the garage. She'll do whatever you ask, Joseph. She always has. It's perfect, my father said. Christopher needs the space. 3 kids in that townhouse, it's too cramped. And Cassandra doesn't need all that room. She'll be fine in an apartment. 3 kids. Mason and Ivy. And 1 more. Morgan was pregnant. I didn't even know. When do we tell her she needs to move out? Christopher asked. After the transfer, my father said. Give it a month. We'll say the house needs work, foundation issues, or something expensive. She'll panic, and we'll offer to take it off her hands. Clean and simple. I stood up. My legs felt like water. I walked down the stairs, grabbed my coat from the closet, and walked out the front door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't make an excuse. I just left. I sat in my car in their driveway, shaking. Not from the cold. From rage. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove to a coffee shop that was open late, one of those chains that stays open on Christmas Eve for lonely people and travelers. I sat in a corner booth with a cup of coffee I didn't drink and opened my laptop. First, I pulled up the deed to my house. My name, Cassandra Marie Brennan. Sole owner. The mortgage was through First National. I'd gotten a great rate, 3.2%, because my credit score was perfect. I'd never missed a payment on anything in my life. But something my father said gnawed at me. It had to be in her name for the financing. I logged into my email and searched for anything from my father. There were dozens of messages over the past year. Most of them were short, transactional. Can you send me that document? Did you get the tax forms? Nothing unusual. Then I found it. An email from 8 months ago. Subject line, house paperwork. The message was brief. Cass, I need you to sign these documents for the estate planning we discussed. Just routine trust stuff. Sign where I highlighted. Dad, there was an attachment. I opened it. It was a quitclaim deed. My hands went numb. A quitclaim deed transfers property ownership. I'd signed it. I remembered signing it. My father had told me it was for estate planning, something about protecting assets. I'd trusted him. I'd highlighted the signature lines and signed without reading the full document. The deed transferred ownership of my house from me to Brennan Family Trust. I pulled up the county records. I searched for my address. Owner, Brennan Family Trust. Trustees, Joseph Brennan, Christopher Brennan. My name was gone. I'd bought the house. I was paying the mortgage, but I didn't own it anymore. I sat there in that coffee shop, staring at the screen, and something inside me cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake. You can hear it before it breaks, that sharp sound that warns you the surface won't hold. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn their love. I'd worked harder, stayed quieter, and asked for less. I'd given them money when they needed it. I'd co-signed loans. I'd been the reliable one, the one who showed up, the one who never caused problems. And they'd stolen my house. I closed the laptop. I paid for the coffee I hadn't touched. I drove home, to the house that wasn't mine anymore, and I sat in the dark living room until the sun came up. Christmas morning, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Where did you go last night? Very rude. Come back for breakfast. Dad wants to talk to you. I'm sure he does, I thought. I didn't reply. An hour later, Christopher texted. Hey, we need to talk about the house. Can you come by Mom and Dad's? I stared at that message for a long time. They wanted me to come back so they could manipulate me in person. So they could smile and use words like family and trust and what's best for everyone. I typed one word. No. My phone rang. My father. I didn't answer. He called 3 more times. Then my mother called. Then Christopher again. I turned off my phone. I spent Christmas Day alone in the house I no longer owned, researching. I read everything I could find about quitclaim deeds, trust law, fraud, and undue influence. I took notes on a legal pad, the way I used to in grad school. By evening, I had a plan forming. The day after Christmas, I went to see a lawyer. Her name was Simone Cross, and she specialized in family law and estate disputes. Her office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with gray hair cut short. I told her everything. I showed her the quitclaim deed, the emails, the county records. I told her about the conversation I'd overheard. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is fraud, she said. Clear, actionable fraud. Your father induced you to sign a document under false pretenses. That's textbook fraud in the inducement. Can I get the house back? I asked. Yes. We'll file a lawsuit to void the quitclaim deed. We'll also file a lease pendens on the property, which prevents them from selling or transferring it while the case is pending. But I need to be honest with you, Cassandra. This is going to get ugly. You're suing your family. They're not my family, I said. Not anymore. Good, Simone said. Because you're going to need that anger. This kind of case, it's emotional. They'll try to guilt you. They'll say you're tearing the family apart. You need to be ready for that. I thought about Mason blocking me from the buffet table. I thought about my mother calling me the easy one. I thought about my father laughing when I offered business advice. I'm ready, I said. One more thing, Simone said. I looked up Brennan Properties while you were talking. Your father's company. It's leveraged. Heavily. If we push hard enough, this lawsuit could trigger some financial pressure. I looked at her. Good. She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who loved her job. We filed the lawsuit on December 28th. Simone hand-delivered the papers to my father's office. By that evening, my phone was exploding with messages. My father. What the hell is this? Call me now. My mother, Cassandra, this is insane. We need to talk. Christopher, are you seriously suing us? Over a house? I didn't respond to any of them. On December 30th, Simone filed the lease pendants. The property was now frozen. They couldn't sell it. They couldn't transfer it. They couldn't do anything with it. That night, my father showed up at my house. He pounded on the door, shouting, "Cassandra, open this door. We need to talk." I stood on the other side of the door, listening to him yell. I didn't open it. Eventually, he left. On New Year's Eve, I received a letter from Brennan Properties' corporate attorney. It was a settlement offer. They would transfer the house back to me if I agreed to drop the lawsuit and sign an NDA. I called Simone. They're scared, she said. The lease pendants is hurting them. They probably have deals pending that require clean title on their properties. This lawsuit is messing up their financing. What do you think I should do? I asked. What do you want to do? I thought about it. I could take the settlement, get my house back, move on with my life. But that wasn't enough. Not anymore. I want them to hurt, I said. The way they hurt me. Then we reject the settlement, Simone said. And we dig deeper. We rejected the offer on January 2nd. That same day, Simone's investigator found something interesting. Brennan Properties had recently refinanced several of their rental properties. The loans were with First National, the same bank that held my mortgage. And according to the loan documents, my father had listed the Brennan family trust assets, including my house, as collateral. He'd used my house to secure loans for his business. This is bank fraud, Simone said. He pledged an asset he obtained through fraudulent means. The bank would never have approved those loans if they knew the trust was created through deception. What does that mean? I asked. It means we can notify the bank. And when we do, they'll likely call the loans. All of them. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. How much are the loans worth? Simone checked her notes. About $2 million. Do it, I said. She looked at me. Cassandra, if we do this, your father's business could collapse. He might lose everything. He tried to take everything from me, I said. Fair is fair. On January 5th, Simone sent a letter to First National Bank outlining the fraud and providing documentation. We included the quitclaim deed, the emails, everything. The bank's response was swift. On January 8th, they issued a notice of default on all of Brennan Properties' loans. They gave my father 30 days to repay the full amounts or face foreclosure on the collateral properties. My father didn't have $2 million in liquid cash. Nobody in real estate does. It's all tied up in properties, equity, loans. He'd have to sell assets to cover the debt. And in a market where interest rates were climbing, selling fast meant selling cheap. On January 10th, my phone rang. It was Christopher. I answered. What the hell have you done? He shouted. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done, I said. Dad's business is collapsing. The bank called the loans. He's going to lose everything. He should have thought about that before he stole my house. It was just a house, Cassandra. We were going to make it right. No, you weren't, I said. You were going to take it. And you thought I'd let you because I always let you. Because I'm the easy one. There was silence on the other end. I'm not easy anymore, I said, and I hung up. On January 15th, my parents showed up at my door together. My mother was crying. My father looked 10 years older. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Cassandra, please, my mother said. We need to talk. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. You're destroying this family, my father said. His voice was hard, but I could hear the desperation underneath. You destroyed it when you decided I didn't matter, I said. That's not true, my mother said. We love you. We've always loved you. You love what I can do for you, I said. That's not the same thing. What do you want? My father asked. Money? We'll pay you for the house. Double what you paid. Just drop the lawsuit. I don't want your money, I said. I want you to lose. The way you made me lose my whole life. My mother gasped. You don't mean that. I do, I said. And I closed the door. By the end of January, Brennan Properties had sold 4 rental properties at a loss to cover part of the debt. It wasn't enough. On February 1st, the bank foreclosed on 3 more properties, including the strip mall Christopher had been so proud of. My father's company, the empire he'd built over 40 years, was crumbling. And I felt nothing. No guilt. No satisfaction. Just the cold, clear certainty that I'd done what needed to be done. In March, Simone called me with news. "The court ruled in your favor," she said. "The quitclaim deed is voided. The house is legally yours again. Full ownership." "What about the fraud charges?" I asked. "The county prosecutor is reviewing the case. It's possible your father could face criminal charges, but that's out of our hands now." I thanked her and hung up. That night, I walked through my house. My house. I touched the walls, the door frames, and the kitchen counter. It feels different now. It felt like mine in a way it hadn't before. I'd fought for it. I'd bled for it. In April, I received a letter from my mother. It was handwritten, 3 pages long. She apologized. She said they'd made a mistake. She said they never meant to hurt me. She said the family was supposed to forgive. I read it once. Then I threw it away. In May, Christopher filed for bankruptcy. The loss of the strip mall deal, combined with his own debts, had pushed him over the edge. Morgan left him. She took the kids and moved back to her parents' house in Connecticut. I heard this through a mutual acquaintance. I didn't reach out. In June, my father sold the family house, the one with the wreaths and the lights and the 2 big Christmas tree. He and my mother moved into a small condo on the other side of town. Brennan Properties still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. My father had managed to salvage a few rental units, enough to limp along. But the empire was gone. In July, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Cassandra." It was my father. I didn't hang up. I waited. I just wanted to say. He paused. "I'm sorry. For what we did. For everything." I could hear the weight in his voice. The exhaustion. The defeat. "Okay," I said. "Is that it?" he asked. "Just okay. What do you want me to say, Dad?" "I want you to forgive me." I thought about that. Forgiveness. The thing they'd always expected from me. The thing I'd always given. "No," I said. "Cassandra, you don't get to steal from me and then ask for forgiveness," I said. "You don't get to treat me like I don't matter my whole life and then ask me to make you feel better about it. I'm your father." "You were supposed to be," I said. "But you chose Christopher. You always did. And when I finally stood up for myself, you couldn't handle it." He was quiet for a long time. "I hope one day you can forgive me," he said finally. "I hope one day I matter enough to you that you understand why I can't," I said. I hung up. I never heard from him again. It's been a year since that Christmas dinner. A year since I heard them planning to steal my house through a heating vent. I still live in the house. I painted the walls. I bought new furniture. I planted a garden in the backyard. It doesn't feel like theirs anymore. It feels like mine. I don't talk to my family. I don't go on holidays. I don't send birthday cards. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I wish I'd handled it differently. If I miss them. The answer is no. I spent 30 years trying to earn their love. I gave them everything I had, and it was never enough. So I stopped giving. And when I finally fought back, they called me cruel. They called me vindictive. They said I destroyed the family. But here's the truth they'll never understand. You can't destroy something that was never real. They didn't love me. They loved the version of me that made their lives easier. The moment I stopped being that person, I stopped being their daughter. So I built a new life. One where I don't apologize for taking up space. One where I don't shrink myself to make other people comfortable. I'm not the easy one anymore. And I'm never going back. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the family scapegoat, if you've ever been underestimated or taken for granted, hit that like button and share this video. And tell me in the comments, would you have done the same thing, or would you have taken the settlement? I read every comment, and I want to know where you stand. Subscribe if you believe that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.